Welcome, welcome, welcome in, everybody. Welcome to Care Concierge with Care Patrol, where education is the heart of everything we do. Today, our CEU hour will be devoted to biomedical ethics, and there's a interesting case that's recently in the news that we'll examine and discuss, I hope, at length later. Care Concierge and Care Patrol present this hour. We are the heart. Education, rather, is the heart of everything that we do. If you're not familiar with Care Patrol, we're a little bit like a real estate agent for healthcare. We help folks determine what their needs are as they leave a hospital or as they age or as they acquire some new instances in their life. We help them know what's ahead of them on their journey, what it costs, and if it involves community placement, we tour them like a realtor. So we're like a real estate agent in that way, and we're paid like a real estate agent, which means that if we tour someone in a number of communities and they don't qualify or don't move for whatever reason, we would not be paid and we would never charge them for the time that we spent. So that's Care Patrol. I thank you all for supporting us and for supporting these contact hours. Today's hour is an ethics hour, 1.0 hour. We're accredited by the Alabama Board of Nursing and also by the Alabama Board of Social Work Examiners in order to provide 1.0 contact hour in ethics for today's unit. Now, in order to receive a certificate and credit for today, you must complete our online evaluation. And this evaluation is password protected. We give the password out at the end today. And in that way, we can show to the Board of Social Work that this hour was a live hour, one in which you had the opportunity to engage and present. Our link for those of you who are driving or not able to see your computer working at your desk, if you want to write down our link for today, I've posted it in the chat room, and I'm also going to read it for you now. It is https://www.surveymonkey.com/all uppercase letters and some numbers 6 G as in girl W 6 7 9 Z as in zoo. That is our evaluation link. I've posted it in the chat room for you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for speaking today. It's a little overcast. I hope it's not raining on you wherever you are. And I appreciate you for being here. Appreciate all you do. Today, as always, we want to encourage discussion. If you're new to Zoom and you don't know how to participate in the chat room, move your cursor to the top of your screen or to the bottom of your screen, and the word chat will appear on a black box. Click on that and add your thoughts to ours. We really do want you to think about some things today and add your comments and really do a little bit of searching in terms of what's important to you. So biomedical ethics will be the vehicle by which we do that. So we have three objectives for today. One is we want to list 3 species that are listed or targeted for de-extinction. we want to list at least two of the genetically altered components of the woolly mouse, which we'll discuss at length. And we want to discuss along the way various ethical questions around de-extinction, which involves cloning. Now, some of you may be as old as I am, but cloning was something of a hot topic back in the 80s when it was first maybe presumed that we would get to that stage. And now, nearly 40 years later or more, cloning is very much a part of what's happening in our world. So let's start with discussion, and I want to get y'all started. What would it mean to de-extinct a species? What would it mean to de-extinct a species? Does that terminology even have any meaning for you? De-extinction. What would it mean to the world to de-extinct a species? Dr. Burrows says to bring it back into reputable numbers. Ms. Hurd says bring the species back from becoming extinct. Not quite. Ms. Harrell says bring them back to life, which is a little bit true. A little bit true. Creation of new animals' life when no more of that species were alive, making breedable animals, says Emily Winfrey. That is so interesting you bring up that topic. Sedina Ward says to recreate the species. Cassie Martin, I had to look it up after this recent wolf development. Never heard the term, says Miss Townsend. And resurrect, says Miss Robinson. Jacqueline Waters says clone species to prevent extinction. Great answers, and thank you for your participation. It really does make this much better when you add your observations and opinions to mine. Everyone benefits when you speak up, and I appreciate you each for doing so and encourage the rest of you to do so. On January 6th of 2000, the Bucardo, which is an Pyrenean ibex subspecies of the wild mountain goat, was confirmed extinct. Celia, as the Bucardo was known, was crushed beneath a tree in Spain. But 1 year prior to Celia's death, scientists had removed some of her cells and frozen them for preservation. Well, in 2003, attempts began at cloning Celia. Copies of her cell nucleus containing her DNA were implanted into 782 eggs taken from domestic goats who were the most closely resembling Celia in terms of her structure. 407 embryos developed. About half of those were transferred into the wombs of 57 surrogate goat mothers. 7 turned into pregnancies, and 1 was born successfully. The Bucardo in 2003 became the first species to return from extinction. And within minutes, it was extinct for the second time in 3 years as the baby's lungs did not develop properly and it suffocated at birth. So there are 3 realities then when we're talking about de-extinction, which is the scientific pursuit of using advanced cloning to resurrect extinct species. First is the technical ability to perform these acts, which, as we know, won't be easy. And that's just the technical aspects, not the aspects that would occur after the birth. And third, as the movie title suggested many years ago, there will be blood. Colossal Biosciences, Inc. is a de-extinction company that was founded in 2021. And it was founded by celebrated Harvard geneticist George Church and a tech entrepreneur named Ben Lamb. And Colossal Biosciences decided or chose 3 species to pursue in terms of de-extinction policies and work. Those are the woolly mammoth, which, as you know, is an elephant-like species that's been gone for 8 to 10,000 years in its main habitat in China and Siberia, but at least 4,000 years from the last known holding or last known spot for woolly mammoths to roam, which was Wrangel Island in the Arctic. And so 2 woolly mammoth mummies were found from which DNA was extracted on Wrangel Island. They also chose the Tasmanian tiger, which is an Australian animal that's been extinct since the 1930s, and the dodo. Now, I just wondered, and if you can comment in the chat room, how many of you have heard of the dodo? It seems to me that the dodo is something that sort of everybody knows about. It's something we may have grown up seeing in a cartoon, or somehow we know about the dodo, the flightless bird that went extinct in the 17th century. Oh, Miss Johnson, you've never heard of it. Well, you'll hear of it today. Alice in Wonderland. That's it, Miss Sims. There's Alice in Wonderland book. The dodo is in that. Correct. Well, let me ask you then, the dodo is not, but what is the most studied mammal on Earth? Monkey or mouse, human, rats, humans or rats, rat. Well, y'all are close, sort of. Miss Bailey Sidor or Sidor, you were correct. Humans are the most studied mammals on Earth. So what's number 2? If humans are number 1, what is the number 2 most studied mammal on Earth? It's not the woolly mammoth. Mice, you're right. Mice. The mouse is the most studied, second most studied mammal on Earth. Colossal Biosciences decided that they would try to identify the genes responsible for making a woolly mammoth a woolly mammoth. And naturally, that would include the long woolly hair and the way that mammoths metabolized fat that helped them survive the cold. So they compared then these ancient samples of this genetic material pulled from these 4,000-year dead mummies, mammoths, and they compared those with genetic sequences of African and Asian elephants to see if they could determine where the variants were. And then we look in the mouse for those same genes and instances where those genes have been involved with making a woolly coat or longer hair or changing the color of the hair, says Beth Shapiro. She is the chief science officer for Colossal Biosciences, and she is a renowned geneticist. I believe she's in University of California system. So researchers with Colossal Biosciences Inc. used the latest genetic engineering techniques, which were pioneered, by the way, by Mr. Church. And they did a combination of modifications based on the mammoth genomes and in the mouse's DNA. In fact, they made 8 simultaneous edits to the genomes of the laboratory mice in hopes that these changes would produce the desired attributes of the woolly mammoth they're seeking to replicate. And this experiment appears to have worked. On March the 4th of this year, not just 6 weeks ago, the woolly mouse was announced as having been created by Colossal Biosciences. Let me ask you, do you eat meat? And if you eat meat, do you have a pet? This is a question that you may have been asked in an ethics class in college. Do you eat meat? And if so, do you have a pet? Yes, meat, yes, and yes, yes, and no, yes, and yes, yes, and yes, yes, and yes, yes, no. I see. So, a reason I ask is that there are certainly some folks that say that de-extinction, at least in the way that Colossal Biosciences has chosen to pursue it, that they have chosen what is called cute washing. They say there are certainly better uses of the time and technology and money spent on de-extinction that could be spent to help those at risk of extinction. And folks raise the concern about the environmental impact of reintroducing the mammoths. And they also say, wait a minute, this could be Pandora's box here. What are we about to unleash that we don't fully understand by bringing back an animal that has previously been extinct? There could be unforeseen consequences. And we know this is true. It happens when you introduce a species not native to a new soil. Think of kudzu. Kudzu, which grows in a very sort of, not as prolific in Japan where it's from as it grows in the South, where Lady Bird Johnson had it put to cover up the blight on the side of the road. Kudzu took over the South, took over every place it went. It wasn't meant to be there. It was brought in. And so it's impossible for us to know how the local ecology then would change once we reintroduce the woolly mammoth. So they're saying, some ethicists say, for example, that the woolly mouse is cute washing. And what that means is they're creating a distraction from the moral concerns and the ecological concerns and the ethical concerns of cloning a woolly mammoth or any animal by creating something that's very cute. It's difficult to justify the existence of the woolly mouse. It is not reestablishing any lost biodiversity. So why does it exist? Other than the fact that it is cute. Do you know that finding things to be cute is within us? It is buried within our evolution that we find our offspring cute so that we protect them. In fact, I was told at the birth of my first child, who looked remarkably like me at birth, that it's true in humans as well as in lions that children, when they're born, look like the father to keep the father from killing them. At least that's what she said. Not that she was any danger of me killing my child, but you get the point. The cuteness response then has the effect of expanding our moral circle. If we find something cute, we find it okay. We value it. We want to protect it. Something that is cute then is worthy of our moral concern. And our moral judgments are intertwined most of the time with our affective judgments. So whether we think, in other words, that something is morally wrong, or that something is morally acceptable is as much how we feel about it as any ethical justification that we can make. The reason I ask, most people would feel disgusted by the idea of eating a beloved pet, and yet they would not feel disgusted at the idea of eating a chicken sandwich. The feelings of disgust correlate with a judgment that we make, an effective judgment that eating the dead pet is morally wrong, even if it's not immoral to eat other animals. And so let's think about that as relates to the woolly mammoths. Does it make sense then that they chose this avenue for reasons other than that mice are the most studied and most easily manipulated? Let me ask y'all then, does the cuteness, if you find it so, of the woolly mouse affect your judgment of whether cloning is morally right or morally wrong? Does the cuteness? No, says Cassie Martin, Angela Sims, Lisa Hurd, Emily Winfrey. Okay, Jacqueline Waters, Rebecca Bowyer. No. Does the cuteness of the woolly mouse affect your judgment of cloning, whether cloning is morally right or wrong? None of you say that it does. So the woolly mouse is a genetically engineered mouse with the key characteristics of the extinct woolly mammoth. For us, it's an incredibly big deal, says Shapiro. And they, Colossal Biosciences, posted a scientific paper online on March 4th at the same time that they announced the creation of the woolly mouse. And in that online paper, they detailed how they had implanted genetically modified embryos into female lab mice who gave birth to the first pups on October of 2024. Now, who knew before today that mouse babies were called pups, mouse pups? This is really validation that what we have in mind for our longer term de-extinction project is really going to work, says Dr. Shapiro. So George Church, I mentioned earlier, from Harvard, helped develop CRISPR. Is anyone familiar with CRISPR? It's a term that may be familiar, but you may not quite know what it is. But it allows the cut and paste sort of manipulation of strands of DNA with a precision that's not yet available before its invention. Dr. Shapiro says we ended up with some absolutely adorable mice that have longer, woolly, golden colored coats. And they also have fat similar to the mammoth. This is exciting to us because it confirms that the genes and gene families that we identified using our comparative genomics approach really do cause an animal to have a woolly coat and a golden coat and a longer hair, Shapiro said. And this is the way that we're going to create mammoths for the future. And the hope by Colossal Biosciences is that by editing the genes in embryos of Asian elephants, as they did in mice, and then implanting those into African elephants who were larger and would be more likely to be able to give birth to a larger animal, that they might have developed a key distinctive trait, mammoth, by 2028. That's 3 years, not even, from now. In 3 years, a woolly mammoth-like animal could once again roam this planet. Dr. Burrows says, but are they really mammoths if they are manipulating DNA? Why? I'm not sure I understand your question, Miss Ward. So I'll come back to you and ask again, what would de-extinction even really mean? Let's say that the woolly mammoths come back. What are the implications of that? Not only as regards the woolly mammoth, but as regards perhaps other gene editing and cloning. If, for example, you can isolate the gene in a mouse and in an elephant and in a Tasmanian tiger and in a dodo, if you can isolate the genes that make that thing the thing that it is, or isolate it and enhance it, who is to say what is next? And Ms. Hurd says, will our Earth be able to sustain them, habitats, etc.? Great point, Ms. Hurd. Constant Tolbert says, I hope they keep the mice in the lab, and I'm not really thinking that we need these creatures. What predators are there against them? What effect, positive or negative, could they have on our animal kingdom? That's the way I want us all to be thinking. I feel like because we're doing an ethics workshop, perhaps we should question our own ethics or whether we have established ethics on this topic. What's the ultimate goal in bringing them back, says Ms. Martin. We'll get into that in just a minute. What would distinction even really mean? To restore the Arctic tundra, you're correct, Ms. Winfrey. So de-extinction in the definition by Ben Novak is the ecological replacement of an extinct species by means of purposefully adapting a living organism to serve the ecological function of the extinct species by altering phenotypes through means of various breeding techniques, including artificial selection, backbreeding, and precise hybridization facilitated by genome editing. So backbreeding, if you think about it, I've been looking lately for a dog. I lost my dog the week before Thanksgiving. And the dog that I've been looking at is called a Shorty Bulldog. And it's new. So it is a bulldog that is smaller than an English bulldog, bigger than a French bulldog, that doesn't have the smashed face and breathing problems, and supposedly doesn't have the hip dysplasia. This dog has been backbred from what used to be a bulldog into a new breed, yet approximating the older breed bulldog of many years ago, backbreeding. So the extinction then, and we've said this already, raises some fundamental ethical questions. And one of you asked, what are the priorities in conservation? Ethically, what should we place at the forefront? Should it be de-extinction, or should it be preventing extinction? Or should it be helping edit genes so that animals don't become extinct due to predators or other climate change or other elements? It also raises a question about why species matter. And you've said it yourself. Why does the woolly mouse matter? And it shows us the risk of scientific progress before our ethics and values can catch up to its possibilities. The Bicardo shows the problem of de-extinction and the harm that it does to individual animals, both the surrogate parents and the newborn clones. Both risk suffering and trauma And both are really just instruments in a research project. They have no, uh, they give no license or permission to have their lives used in such a way. So de-extinction then, ethically challenging. It was a course of action may not always be ethically advisable, and sometimes it may be morally impermissible. The big question, and I think Dr. Burrow may have raised it, is it really a clone? Is de-extinction even possible? If a species is extinct, then it cannot exist in the future. And if it cannot exist in the future, then it cannot be resurrected. But de-extinction just is the resurrection of an extinct species. Therefore, de-extinction, in its truest sense, is an impossibility. Should it be done? Even if we can do it, even if we could create the woolly mammoth in 2028, should we do it, even if we have the ability to do so? Dr. Shapiro from Colossal says in the majority of ongoing de-extinction projects, the goal is to create functional equivalents of species that once existed, ecological proxies that are capable of filling the species' ecological niche, as Miss Winfrey said, to restore the Arctic tundra. Well, in what ways then could de-extinction provide benefits? Miss Winfrey certainly hit on one. We could restore the Arctic tundra. In what other ways might the de-extinction movement provide benefits? And now Colossal is not the only company that is trying to resurrect extinct species. Another is trying to resurrect the carrier pigeon, which died out, I think, in the 20th century. The problem is that science doesn't yet have the capacity to inject the DNA into the egg once the embryo is then formed. In what ways could de-extinction provide benefits? I see y'all have gone quiet on me. Well, it could bring benefits, says Colossal. With the dodo, for example, they say the dodo, and I asked the question earlier, who knows the dodo? They say the dodo is synonymous with extinction, with animals going extinct. And they hope that by bringing the dodo back to life, it would create a symbol of hope that would be adopted around the world for the ability and efforts of conservation in keeping things from going extinct. And they also say that the techniques that they use to develop to bring animals back could also be applied to help protect present day endangered species. Now, that's an exciting idea. But the challenges are enormous technically and ethically. And they overlap. De-extinction candidates, then, we might say, might be best judged on a case-by-case basis. And so the examples then of technology being used today to help species that are facing extinction, already we're using CRISPR and other DNA genetic engineering to help northern quolls, who are a rodent, you've seen them pictured here on the screen, in Australia, who are dying in vast numbers and at risk of being extinct because of the poison of the cane toad, which again is an invasive species brought in to Australia from outside it, and it is killing a native Australian quoll. And in the US, biotechnology has boosted the genetic diversity of black-footed ferrets, whose numbers had dwindled so far that they were beginning to be inbred. Now, 100 years ago, the chestnut blight killed 4 billion chestnut trees, making them functionally, if not entirely, extinct. But with genetic engineering, they're coming back. De-extinction pushes the boundaries of genetic technologies further. And this may generate even more innovative conservation techniques. Colossal biosciences work could help scientists produce eggs, sperm, and embryos for a range of threatened species, including the Asian elephant and the African elephant. I'll ask now, what makes a species matter? For example, why does a mouse matter? And if a mouse matters, does a woolly mouse matter? What makes a species matter? For example, why does a mouse matter? Anyone? What makes a species matter? Emily Winfrey says where they sit ecologically, food chain, dispersal of resources, nutrients. It is my understanding that every species provides some purpose in nature. Impacts on food chain. These are good questions, topics I haven't thought about because they are a living, breathing thing, says Lynn Harrell. What makes a species matter? What they can contribute to science advancements, says Ms. Smith. Importance in maintaining the ecosystem, says Mr. Harris. Charmaine Hamilton says their overall impact on nature. Dr. Burrow says we make it matter. If we deem it as unnecessary, then it won't matter enough sometimes. What they contribute to nature, biodiversity, environmental balance, health of the planet, says Ms. Wilson. We make it, says Farrah Banks. We make a species matter. So, as we've talked about, Colossal Biosciences has pieced together the species genome of the mammoth from fragments of DNA from mummies found dead more than 3,000 years. This map is what they're trying to recreate, and the plan is to use the CRISPR gene editing technology to modify the DNA of the Asian elephant, as we said, inserting specific genes most essential to being a mammoth. Again, hair and cold weather adaptations. Now, the result, as Dr. Burrow pointed out earlier, the result would not be genetically identical to the mammoths that roamed the planet during the Ice Age. In fact, what they would be really more is a mammothied elephant, a hybrid, a cold resistant elephant, let's say. Does that matter? Does the species then have rights if it doesn't exist yet? Woolly mammoths, as we've said before, are extinct. They do not exist. They cannot be born. Therefore, do they have rights if they do not yet exist? And need we concern ourselves with the ethical questions around the woolly mammoth? Does it have rights, or does this new species, really, this mammothied elephant, this cold water adaptation, this mammothant, does it have rights if it doesn't exist yet? Ms. DuBose says she doesn't think so. Ms. Talbert says no. Does a species have rights if it doesn't exist yet? No, no. Dr. Burrow says if we deem that it has rights, it can. Does a species have rights if it doesn't exist yet? And then what is the most direct ethical question around de-extinction? It will if people decide it does, says Miss McCraney. Brittany Lee, the implications of bringing back or creating such creatures should be heavily weighed and taken into consideration for the greater good. How would this animal affect us, the ecosystem, and what would a world with its existence consist of? Very well said, Miss Lee. What's the most direct ethical problem with de-extinction? We've listed both sides. We've listed the benefits. What's the biggest problem with de-extinction? Well, isn't it these creatures themselves, whether they're mammoths or mammothants or cold water adapted elephants, they will have rights upon birth or upon the point that we ascribe to them having rights. The Bucardo had rights, one could argue, when it came back into existence for a period of minutes. But its deformity was not a fluke, was part of an ongoing experiment, let's say. We've already seen that cloned animals typically have issues with rapid aging, ongoing health problems, and premature death. Many new mammoth babies would likely suffer and die young in the early stages of de-extinction work. And the first generation of mammoths that came to grow up, we'd have no idea about how to raise them. We'd have no idea about how to raise them. These new creatures will be genetically distinct from ancestors. Meeting exact nutritional and social needs for them will be guesswork. There's so many aspects that are unknown, and just recreating the entire suite of genetic and epigenetic and behavioral traits that allowed mammoths to thrive in ice age environments might never be possible. And then climate change could be a hurdle to this new creature that is bred to live in temperatures that are on average 10 degrees colder. We've seen from zoos and other efforts at conservation that elephants are hard to keep in captivity. They must eventually be released, and they are dependent on the intergenerational transfer of knowledge from elephants in the wild that they engage with to learn things like where the watering hole is or what is the migration route. How will the first mammoths learn to survive with no generation above them? And if we create new mammoths, I would put to you that we'll also be creating responsibilities to them. Morality is a duty. A moral right is a duty. Someone owes you a moral right because of A, B, C, D. If we create new creatures, we'll also be creating these ethical concerns for them. But if we don't, we can focus on the living. And I've seen so many comments come through. I'm going to go back and read them, if you will. Oh, so many. If I could find us. Oh, here's Miss Lee's comment. Now let me go down. Miss Wilson says, not addressing the root cause of the species loss. This could be a habitat destruction, climate change, yes, human interference, etc., just unpredictable ecological impacts. The same thing Dr. Burrows said that the movie series Jurassic Park World tried to tell us. We have no clue, says Charmaine Hamilton, how bringing something back will impact the existing creatures. Could they come back and make us extinct? What an interesting question. Exactly, says DeAndrea Smith. That would be a concern for me too. How will they affect our existence is what we should be asking, just as you stated. So the mammoths or the mammified elephants are a concern I see for you as well. But cloning carries risk for these surrogate mothers. The base DNA will come from an Asian elephant, but it will be implanted into an African elephant. Both of these cause strain on the populations of the Asian elephant and the African elephant, which are both at risk of extinction. Both are endangered, and neither have a choice in their participation in this project. Now, we saw how many embryos were required to create one Bucardo. Think about how many embryos will be required to create one mammified elephant. An elephant's gestation period is 18 months. There would need to be herds of elephants that would require many of them to be in captivity while these experiments were carried out. They each suffer potential traumas of repeated miscarriages. The mothers may need C-sections. Surgery on an elephant is no small task. And if they are successful in giving birth, they will have given birth to something they do not recognize. A strange and hairy child who they may or may not accept. Can we agree then that it is morally wrong to cause a sentient being, in this case, an Asian elephant or an African elephant or a lab mouse, unnecessary suffering? De-extinction, in my estimation, will cause unnecessary suffering. Does anyone agree or disagree? Does anyone feel that we should move forward with de-extinction policies, that this makes sense, that we have something to learn? Is de-extinction, in other words, morally justified? Ms. Talbert says, I believe it is wrong. De-extinction should not be done. Is de-extinction morally justified in your mind? And this is, I guess, subjective in some sense. Is de-extinction morally justified? In my humble opinion, not, says Miss Hurd. Miss Beal says no. Miss Lee, no. Miss Talbert, Miss Jackson, Miss Ward, Miss Wilson, all no. Carrie Newby, in my opinion, is unethical when considering the rights of living things. Miss Dias, no. Waters, no. Burt, no. We all are of the same agreement. So de-extinction. Oh, Miss Martin, you really don't know where you stand. I love that you are honest in that way. Sometimes de-extinction has been thought to have been impossible, and it may in fact be, given all of the variants that create and combine to make a species and its heredity. So, as Dr. Burrow pointed out, we may be creating a Jurassic Park with all of those moral questions intact. It is obviously a complicated moral issue, and there are no simple, easy answers. I hope this has been a fun discussion for you. I'm overjoyed that so many of you took part in the discussion. Because why are we bringing a species back, says Miss Wilson? They are gone for a reason, even if they served a good purpose before. I believe the true reason for bringing something back should guide the moral compass, says Miss Hamilton. Miss Talbert, I believe in the cycle of life, that if something went extinct, that was its intended life course. Miss Wilson says we can't come back. Well, that's the ultimate question then, isn't it, Miss Wilson? If we can clone mammoths, can we clone people? Can we clone ourselves? Our code word today is cute washing. It's one word, no hyphen, capital C, all other letters are lowercase. Cute washing. They did bring back the dire wolf hybrid. It is a hybrid, just as this mammoth would be predicted to be. But in the case of the dire wolf, I think they do make some sound ecological points for bringing it back and reintroducing it into its ecosystem. It's a much harder argument for a woolly mammoth or a mammothized elephant. Our code word is cute washing. The survey will close at 8 o'clock tonight. You must do a survey in order to get a certificate. If you're a nurse, it says the password is incorrect. Code word not working. Let me see if I'll fix the code word. In fact, no code word. You've all heard the code word. I will remove the code word from the evaluation as soon as we hang up today. I will remove the password. The survey you have, I'll read it one more time, https:// www.surveymonkey.com /lowercase r /6 uppercase G W 679 Z. And that is it. Let me see if I can stop my share here, and I will fix the password so that there is no password for you. Join us again in 2 weeks on April 5th, when we will have a new discussion on the hospice death doula. Some of you may have been with us before. This will be bringing the death doula into the dying process. Nicholas Bailey will be our speaker, and we're very excited about this topic, which I first introduced maybe 3 or 4 years ago in our series. We have about 110 recorded CEUs on YouTube. You can go there and research, or just type in the YouTube search, Sean Barnes, Carepatrol, pull up my channel. You can take any of those for credit. Nurses, we post your hours for you. Social workers, you can fill out this and get a certificate from us after the close of these today. Are there any more questions? I don't see any. Let's see. Thank you. Thanks for the survey is working. Good to know. Thank you all for being here. I hope this was fun. It was fun for me. Had a lot of fun researching this, and I hope it brought up some good questions for you in your own life. Y'all have a great couple of weeks, a great day, and join us again on the 5th. If you want to know how to sign up for anything new, go to carepatrol.com, put in find your local advisor. I'm likely the person who will come up. click on my page and scroll down. You can sign up for all of our upcoming 2025 CEUs. Thank y'all. Have a great day.